In today's video, we're going to go back into something that you guys have been asking for. You guys have been asking it for quite a while, and I'm keen to get back into it. We're going back to Helm's Deep.
So it begins.
Now, Helm's Deep has actually been in storage for quite a few months, actually since the last video came out. And Helm's Deep is actually the reason I actually got a storage unit, because it got so big, I kind of needed one. But it kind of didn't work out too well. So as you guys can see, there's a bit of stuff to do. We need to basically repair all the damages that have happened while it's been in storage. Unfortunately, it is the way it is. There's not much we can do about it, but we can start to repair that kind of stuff. And then I have a plan that we might be able to put the Hornberg tower at some point, right. Ooh, where is it? Right about there. I think I've got a plan on how to do that. So we might be able to actually get a chance to do that. And then we're going to start building up the rock work all over. And hopefully by the end of this video, it should be ready for painting. So we'll have to wait and see. Obviously we have to do the causeway as well. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I'm excited. Let's get straight into it. Alright guys, so as you guys can see, we are now, it's all sorted. There is a few damages, unfortunately, that's happened while it's been in storage. Some of the battlements have been broken off, as you guys can see. It is the way it is, unfortunately. There's a few things that are missing that I might have to redo. But at the moment, as you guys can see, I'm going to start building up the foam to start doing up the rock work. We're going to do some repairs, and honestly, the Hornberg tower, I think I can fit there. We're gonna have to wait and see, but I think I might be able to cut a few things back and actually get the Hornberg tower in, which is good because I wasn't sure I was able to get it in or not. And then of course I've got the causeway coming out here, so well, we'll see how we go. But I think we're gonna start with the deepening wall. Now, we already started the rock mold on our weekly live stream, so make sure to come over on Sundays and sometimes either Wednesdays or Thursdays and get to see some preview stuff in action, guys. But really easy, just build up the foam inlay on the side of the deepening wall. I had to cut back some of the deepening wall so it could all fit, and we also glued all the rock molds together with some really nice World Bond. I don't know if you guys have it over everywhere, but here in Australia we have something called World Bond, where it's really nice and sticky, really pliable, and you can work with it within an hour. And once all those rock molds were fully dry, it took about a day to use to get it all dry. We started using modeling compound from Geek Gaming Scenics and just wet blend that straight into the rock face. And as you guys can see, it really does work very well, and you're going to see this a lot. I'm going to say this a lot during this video, that it really works quite well for using with rock mold. I've done it for quite a while, and it works really well. So next I decided to work on the Hornberg tower as well as the causeway. So starting on the Hornberg tower, I was really decided to how I was actually going to do this, and a good reference was from a White Dwarf article from the early 2000s, where they used to build their Helm's Deep, the GW Helm's Deep, they actually used like a cardboard tube. So I went to my local post office and I found one there. So I used that for the Hornberg tower and covered it in foam essentially. So just cut off really thin bits of foam, a few bits of triangle foam as well, just really using my standard technique, well, very much a hobby standard technique of carving bricks in foam. Now I really don't have any sort of measurements for this. I really was just going off movie stills, and really the wetter environment was a really good design piece for this, like really looking into it, see what kind of stones they were using, like how big the bricks were as well. Really helpful during this process, as well as the shape of the tower as well. Cutting longer pieces to cover up the cardboard tube, and then cutting it to a rough triangle shape to try and get the 4 points of the tower, and then covering up the excess with just small strips of XPS foam. Again, in another weekly live stream, we worked on the causeway itself. Again, I was asking chat for some help and some directions of how it should look like, and I think it turned out pretty well. Just using a bit of a stencil, really, because we already have the main gate, and just using the next section of the board to actually work out the curvature of the ramp itself, and I think it worked out quite well. I also made a tiny bit of the top for the tower as well. There's actually enough room to fit a little gimli in there as well to blow the horn of Helm Hammerhand. Now I wanted to make sure that everything was fixed before I started doing any more plastering or any more gluing of anything down to make sure everything was permanent. So I fixed everything that I could using a bit of foam, using a little bit of filler and everything like that, and it seemed to work out pretty well. I did work out a little bit of everything in the end, because the next step was to start gluing everything down. I wanted everything to be in a permanent position. Now not everything is glued down, such as the main gate and the right side of that wall. Actually some of the top of the Hornberg isn't glued down either, just to make sure for easier access to storage, easy access to painting as well, because if we glue everything down, it's going to be really hard to get a brush in there and just, you know, sprays as well in there as well. So I thought it was worthwhile to keep them unglued, essentially, not to have them in a permanent position, but they're nice and easy to get in and out, and they work quite well. I then really started to work up the rock face by starting with some green structural foam. This stuff is great for this kind of stuff. It's not great for carving, essentially, because of how porous the actual foam is. It's really good for structural stuff like this, for making rock molds, for doing rock facing, this kind of stuff. Again, not great for brickwork, but again, I still had a few bits left over from older projects, so definitely good for this kind of stuff. And really, again, just going through moments from the film, the wetter environment was a really good inspiration for this, and just seeing how the rock work actually works. I also decided to make a little stairway where Aragorn retreats up from the deeping wall, just for when we eventually get to the back of the hall, and the glittering caves eventually when we get to that part, but that won't be for probably a few years, I would imagine. Definitely for a future project, I would imagine. Now we started up with some more rock molds. Now I'm going to tell you guys, I used a lot of rock molds during this project. Just for the first deeping wall bit, as you saw before, I used about 1.5 kilos of plaster of Paris. For this next bit, I used about 7 kilos of plaster of Paris. And I wasn't expecting to use that much. I actually ran out of rock molds and I had to keep making some. So I made about 100 or so different rock molds from a Woodland Scenics rock molds kit. I've got about 3 of them, and just basically for an entire day, really making a lot of rock molds, just one after the other, batch after batch. And as you guys can see, I made quite a bit. Again, the ones that you saw in this box, I needed to make more after that, because how much rock work. I actually underestimated, again, how much rock molds I actually needed. Again, just like the deeping wall, just working up the rock molds onto the foam itself, you know, trying to make it very compact, very tight, so there's not really a lot of green or foam showing. And sometimes using so many rock molds and on different elevations like this, they will be hard to stick to the foam, even with some really decent glue. So just using some cocktail sticks as supports really does help here, guys. Just wedging it under and supporting that rock mold and letting it dry overnight, or at least for 24 hours before you remove it, really does help. Once again, because I did have a variety of rock molds, they do produce different types of rocks. So again, going back to the wetter environments and stills from the film to see what kind of rocks I used in Helm's Deep, I tried to get, like, you know, if there's a spiky rock, I'll use a spiky rock there. More flatter areas of rock, I'll use a more flatter rock, as you guys can see. But you guys can see how much rock molds are actually there. Again, took a long time to dry, and just a bit of repositioning here and there. Some of them did fall off, but again, just, you know, go back and forth and see how they are, trying to cover up as much foam as you can. Again, I went through a lot of plaster of Paris, wasn't able to cover every little gap up, as you guys can see, but again, the great thing about the modeling compound is that it will blend these rocks right in. So it doesn't look too great, as you can see now, but it will blend in really nicely, and it gives a really nice result. Now, at this point, it was the Thursday before the movie was going to be released for the War of the Rohirrim. And again, as I've said in previous videos, I wanted this done before the film came out, or at least before the edition came out. So going through a lot of modeling compounds, I had to buy quite a bit of modeling compound for this. For the entire project, I reckon I went through about 3 or 4 kilos of modeling compound. So again, quite a lot here. As you guys can see though, it blends in spectacularly well. I will say though, we're almost in the middle of summer. We are just started summer here in Australia, and during this time I was doing this project, we were in the middle of a heat wave, and this stuff dries out a lot quicker during a heat wave. So I was doing through small batches, very small batches at a time, and just, you know, just keep repeating the process. And then about 5 or 10 minutes after you've put it on, just wetting your finger and just smoothing the plaster out really helps it blend in as well, as you guys can see. I also decided to make the causeway into the rock face itself. So I went back and forth on how I wanted this to work. I was actually originally going to leave it just as a separate piece, but for more screen accuracy, I decided to build it into a rock face itself. So again, just going back and forth, trying to make a more realistic rock face here. I've done this multiple times, guys, on multiple boards, so I kind of know what I'm doing now. I hope it works really well. I hope you guys enjoy it. I think it works pretty well, to be honest. It's not going to be so great for storage, but that's future Benji's problem. And as I do for all of my board projects, I use some texture paint. This is just from a local hardware store, really cheap for how much you get, and just slathering this all over the board. Really nothing to it, guys, just using texture paint straight over the board, using a pretty decent layer, and then also coming back and flicking some sand over the top as well, just using some modeling sand, just to get a bit more grit, a bit more texture on there as well. So I did that while the paint was still wet. And here we have it. This is Helm's Deep so far. I'm really happy with how the rock molds have turned out. As you guys can see we are close to the end, guys. Next up is the big job of painting it. And with only a few days left to go, let's see if we can get this done. Helm's Deep is so close, guys. As you guys can see, it is here. It's almost done. War of the Rohirrim comes out this week as I'm recording this. Currently Monday the 9th. So I was trying to get this finished before the end. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully I can get this done by the time and you'll see another video next week. We'll have to wait and see. But if you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. Join the Patreon if you can, or become a YouTube channel member. It really does help out, guys. But thank you guys so very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one when we finish building Helm's Deep.